Cloud. Hi, guys. This is the Rhode Island Real Estate Investors Group. It is November 4th, 2021. This is our beginner meeting, and I'd like to welcome our special guest here, a friend and partner of mine, Chris Huffman out of Utah. Him and I have done one solid deal together, and hopefully you're going to be doing more soon. And Chris came on to talk about all of his massive experience in commercial property, large multifamilies, and land development.
Thank you, Frank, very, very much. I guess for those of you who are at least, watching here, if ever I look this direction, I've got a fun little setup here. Other people make fun and call it like, launch control. So I promise I'm still looking at you, even though we're, kind of in a few different spots here. But so again, everybody I'm sure has been to different back and forth where it's just one person just kind of, going off. Like, I want to be able to cater to you guys and for what you guys have done in the past and for what you guys want to be able to learn today. When I started back in real estate, just a short kind of 7 or 8 years ago, I guess I'll go into a little bit more about me here in a minute, but people used to say, so what do you do? Real estate. Oh, cool. What do you do within real estate? And I did, you got to take a big, huge breath. And it's like, well, I've done fix and flips, land developments. We've done small multifamily, large multifamily. The list goes on. We've done the Burr method, house hacking, fix and flips. Probably already said that. So one thing, that we can talk about today is like just finding what aligns with your goals. And, not necessarily what aspect of real estate that you want to do, but thinking with the end in mind. What is real estate going to allow you to do within your life, and deciding what type of real estate or asset class is going to be the best avenue for you to be able to get there. Frank, as I know, there's definitely a lot of, just because you're in real estate, if you're in commercial, residential, multifamily, retail, they're all very, very, very different beasts.
Definitely. There's very few people you can't be an expert on everything.
The first thing I always think is that, if someone's like, what do you do in real estate? Oh, I do it all. We do everything. What's the quote? A tradesman of all, but a master of none.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Jack of all trades and a master of none.
Thanks for calling. That's what I am. So
I doubt that, but Frank, one of the things I love about our partnership back and forth is you're a super straight shooter. Just cut straight to the point, and it's good to find partners that you work well with. So thanks for being able to have me. But I guess I think we have poll. Have you ever used polls and stuff in the Zoom meetings and chats?
We have not. I don't know if we have it. But you can just do like a hand thing or you can try it. You're a co-host, so go ahead.
Okay, so
we've paid for the regular plan, maybe 1 or 2 steps up, maybe not the top corporate plan or something.
I've got no clue.
Oh, okay.
I'm just probably not gonna try, but I can't really see most of you, but I mean, based on how many of you have actually invested in real estate versus you're just thinking about it. It's kind of either a thumbs up or if you've done something in real estate. Anybody never done a real estate deal before, but you're interested?
I see 1 or 2 hands up. 3, 4. Yeah, 4 people.
No, I am curious, if you've never done any real estate, maybe drop into the little chat there. What makes you interested in it? Did you get hooked on the latest season of HGTV fix and flip? And if you are in real estate, what was your first deal? What type of deal did you do first? Was it a land development? Was it a fix and flip with a friend? So drop some of those into the chat here over the next couple of minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share this. All right. So, this is kind of aimed towards real estate development specifically and land development. But again, there's a couple of different things that just, yeah, I want to cater a little bit to everybody, but we'll go through the basics of land development and then how that relates to different asset classes and where some of the stuff I do today. We don't just do land development today, but the experience I have in land development actually helps with some of the other types of projects we do. So, so I'm just reading in the comments, that Brian did house hacking. We've got first deal was owner occupied 3-family. Now that I guess looking back, so can you guys see the screen okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so looking back, hello, that's me. One of the things that so I'm based here out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been in real estate about 7 or 8 years. I started as a student in college. I'm not a generational real estate individual. Like I don't have a bunch of other family who was either real estate agents or real estate investors. I actually took, I got started by, I took one of my college finance professors out to breakfast. And he taught me on the back of a napkin how to underwrite or how to do the basic numbers in real estate. He had worked for a large developer for 20 years, and his day-to-day, he does like hard money lending, or like, you want to go buy a fix and flip, he'll go loan you the money to do it, like on a short-term 6-month loan. So anyways, I got started as a student, went through a variety of different things like what we had talked about earlier until I kind of found my niche and where my strengths align, all the way from Airbnb, nightly rental space, to random little, we even looked at buying a trophy shop for the real estate. Again, it's kind of all the way across the board, but I've got, little family here. We just found out we've got our 4th on the way. We rode the crazy train with the 3 under 3 and 4 under 5. So if they come bashing through the door at any moment, just, we've all been pre-warned here. So I wanted to start out. Does anybody know what these are by chance? Let's have a kind of a fun little story to them. I think that is very, very relevant for
the bamboo.
Bamboo.
Chinese bamboo trees. Yep. So these trees again relate very, very well to business. When I got started in real estate, there was a lot of people out there who would tell me, it's get rich quick. It's you're just gonna explode overnight. You go start your first month and you'll make a few $100,000. And like yes, there are those stories, but I think the Chinese bamboo tree is a very good example of what is more common.
Chris, who gave you that bad advice? $100,000 out the door. It wasn't me.
Okay, so Chinese bamboo trees. Okay, so like any plant, you've got to be able to nourish them. After they're going to require water, fertile soil, sunlight. After the first year, there is no visible activity above the ground. Into the 2nd year, 3rd year, and even the 4th year, there is no activity above the ground. Only until 5 years later, the seed finally peeks its head up above the dirt. During all of that time, you have to be nourishing it with water, sunlight, and continually, you can't dig it up to check if the seed's still alive. It's really a lot of faith that it's still alive. But then after it poked its head through the ground, in 6 weeks, it grows to 80 feet, which is pretty insane. So had that tree, most people would say, the seed's just sleeping for the first 5 years. That seed is underneath the ground, growing the foundation and the root system that it needs to be able to support that insane growth on the 5th year. So I guess for a lot of us who've maybe been in deals, I guess you can either give a thumbs up with a small tear in your eye if we've ever had a deal that maybe we thought it was going to go a certain way, and then maybe the universe decided to take it another. I've definitely had a few of those. there is, even if a deal might not go the way you think, or, you submitted in today's market, you submit 100 offers and you only get one or don't get any, like, you're building that root system underneath, and it does take a little bit of time, but you will see that growth over time. It took me 5 years. So this story is actually really pretty practical. It took me 4 years, almost 5 years, until I actually started to see traction, and 6 years until we really started to see that dramatic. All in 12 months, we went from having 2 duplexes to having over 350 doors that we either own or manage through our land developments. And I think we're set to double in literally under 6 months. So it's, again, that dramatic growth is it's real. And Frank, if there's any any comments or questions that you guys have kind of as we're going through any of this, please drop them in, and then that way we can be able to kind of piece some of this together. So Frank was saying the first real estate investment was buying land in Western Massachusetts, and lost about 20,000. There's one deal to date I've ever actually lost money on. I lost $26,400 and something, and it was the most painful thing. It was actually a land development, but we'll get to that here in a few. So, okay. So just as I said before, like, please ask questions. Just if you want to, like, you do a little hand raising emoji. I can just after kind of every slide and ask, kind of clarify as we're going through here. But I wanted to just first give you a good background in land development. There's a couple of, like, just basic steps going through the process, and then we can dive into those steps and how you actually do them. And then towards the end, I can show you guys a few deals that I've actually done and or even currently working on, and then we can even show you guys how to do some of the numbers on them. So you can go, and if it's something that aligns with what you want or you're interested in, you can go and find one too. If there's any, just preliminarily, like in the chat, if you guys want to drop in, if there's any questions that you guys have that you guys would like to learn about land development, and you want to drop them in there, I'll make sure that we'll cover them as we're going through some of this. So,
As you're setting up, we already have our first question. How did we meet? I can answer that.
Frank, I'll let you tell the story.
You want? Oh yeah, you got it. Basically, it's all about relationships and going to meetings, meeting people, this and that. And Chris was friendly with. We basically had a mutual friend, and Chris and I had not known each other. This was about, what, 3 years ago, maybe. And what happened is that I was at a conference in Boston, and our mutual friend was in Denver, Colorado. And I had known Adam for a couple of years, all online, but got to meet him in person. And he knew that I was trying to do syndications and those type of investments I've told some of you guys about. And he said, well, let me hook you up with someone. And basically Chris and Emma out of Utah had a deal in Idaho, and we made it happen.
Yep. That was fun. That's actually one of the things we're going to talk about today. One of the very common misconceptions about real estate is you've got to have a ton of time, a ton of money, and a ton of experience. But that's where being able to have and create relationships is the most important thing. I'm a firm believer, and you'll probably hear it multiple times, but, like, I'm a firm believer that success in this life is predicated off of 2 things: relationships and timing. And only one of those you can control. So being able to grow the relationships, like, I know, that Frank and I, when I've got a project and I need something, I know that Frank and I have the relationship that's there, and it's just a matter based on timing if that specific project makes the most sense to work on together. So, okay, welcome. 5 key areas of land development. Number 1, find the land. Number 2, you get your entitlements, or entitlements are another word for, like, city or county municipality approvals. So you get it approved on paper. Third is to be able to do your horizontal, which is everything from the ground down. So that would be your streets, so curb gutter, sidewalk, asphalt. Then you've got your utilities like your water, sewer, storm drain, all of that goes underneath the ground, your utilities, gas, power, internet. So those are all of your horizontal improvements. And then your vertical construction is where you will take, you'll have your individual building pads that either a home builder or you will be able to pour your foundation and build up. And then lastly is for properties that you're going to build, and then like an apartment building you built, it would be the ongoing management or leasing that up. So any questions on any of these so far? And then we're going to dive into each one of them specifically here as we go. Okay. Okay, so first off, people are like, how in the world do you find land? It's kind of a big important part of land development is you have to have a piece of land in order to develop something. So one of you was mentioning earlier, Brian, you said that you had you were currently house hacking on one property and you were looking to redevelop the other property. Was that like redeveloping the building itself, or could you like develop a house on the back of it, and then when you bought it, did you know that you could do that?
I've had this property for a few years now, and it's been an ongoing thing, but I'd really like to finish my final vision of it, which is a big addition, which pushes the house out and up and connects it to a detached garage, where in between there would be like a breezeway type thing. And off the second story of the house, the bedroom would have a slider or a door coming out with an outdoor patio area that goes to the garage.
Very cool.
And then relocate the garage door from the side of the property to the front, so you pull straight into it.
So,
But it's very big and it's very overwhelming, and I don't know where to begin.
So, you can think about land development, I guess, in two parts, which one is you've got a vacant field and there's nothing there, and you're going to be putting in the brand new streets for the neighborhood, which is what I started in with land development. The other part of that is what you're mentioning, which would be to, more being able to develop and to be able to add into something that, you may be existing, that you can either add an addition onto a home that you have. You can be able to take, we've got a property here in Utah, we're converting 24 units into 32. The zoning allowed for more units than what was on the property. Or another one we're doing, we're turning 16 units. We're going to renovate that building. And then we're actually going to build 10 new townhomes behind it on the extra ground that wasn't built on before. Because a lot of times over time, the zoning codes will change. And so you can have additional, growth. So there's a cool land development, and development to me doesn't just mean it's a vacant field that you're starting 100% from scratch. Sometimes there's a little bit of reworking you can do. So, okay, so with finding your deals, a couple of things to think about. So first is knowing your niche and knowing your market. Okay, when you're talking with brokers or people, I don't know if you've ever heard anybody. It's like, well, what kind of deal are you looking for? Well, something in real estate. Well, do you have a city or a town or a state or a type? No, just anything works. Price range? Nope, I'm good. Okay. Do you have a color you like? Blue. Okay, great. We're looking for a blue property somewhere in the US between $0 to $10 million. Like being able to have your niche is super, super important. And even if you don't know what your niche is, choose one, try it, and pivot. It's the same thing like in college. They'll take you through your generals. Even if you don't want to be a chemist, they're going to make you take a chemistry class or accounting or finance. It's just to be able to give you a little taste of a few different areas before you decide and are able to know where your strengths actually align. So couple of things to think about with your niche in your market. So what asset class are you trying to build? Do you want to be able to have like single family homes or like a single family neighborhood where you're going to develop it and then sell the homes to people who can go and live there? Do you want to do like multifamily where you're being able to build an apartment building that you're going to be able to rent in cash flow, similar to like a BRRRR method, which is where you, what is it? You buy, rehab, refinance, or rent, rehab, something like that. Get your cash back out and hold it.
You're probably not using the BRRRR method, Chris.
I'm not using, it's like.
I'm fine with you. Keep going. You're fine.
Yeah, anyways. It's been a while since I've referenced it, but being able to know which markets you're in as well. So if it's helpful, I can actually show you. So like for brokers, if you're talking to a broker or somebody for a deal and you send them and you tell them, give them a shotgun approach, they're probably going to think you're not that serious, or you're not that either experienced, or you don't know what you want. It's kind of like walking into a car dealership and you don't know whether you want a sports car or a minivan. This is an example of like, so for some of the multifamily stuff, I preface this with, it's a couple of, so this may be, I haven't used this in a couple of months, so it may be outdated as of a moment ago, but this would be a great example of like what we would send to our brokers, saying these are the properties we either have, these are the locations we're either looking in, or the, hey, here's the market, here's the community characteristics we're looking for that are required versus preferred. Here are the property characteristics, perfect deal size, and here's the underwriting information that we need. This is specific towards brokers we're working with where we want an existing property. But Frank, I mean, if you'd like to give this as a resource to the group, I'm happy to forward on a copy that you can send out a little later. And
Yeah, sure.
sometime, I'm a huge fan of don't recreate the wheel. Take this, rework it for what works for you. And then, yeah. Okay, let's come back here. Okay, so knowing your niche, knowing your markets. So just decide something, try it, focus, and pivot if it doesn't work, or pivot when you find out something else that makes more sense. Okay, location. Location in developments is super important. Somebody told me, they sent me a development the other day, and let's just say that even after hearing the name of the city, them telling me where it was, looking for it on a map, I still couldn't find the city. I'm probably not going to be doing a large development in that particular place. Being able to know, looking at like some of the back end data, and there's some really easy ways that we use and pull market data, like unemployment rates, job growth, population growth, median household income, median contract rents, stuff like. And again, not all of those are super important, but just being able to know that you have a place that would be desirable, that people are going to want to live. Just because it's new doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to want to live there. Or if you build something new, but it's in a really dangerous neighborhood or where the crime is super high, you could have a very vandalized building that could depreciate in value rather than appreciate. Understanding your channels. So a few of the channels that we use to be able to find properties, social media, so Facebook groups. We use LinkedIn. There's some like cool keyword searches. And I'm happy to show you guys if you like, or I can even have a little thing after the fact. Like we've got a little video that shows how to do some keyword searches, Facebook posts about people either looking or to sell. Frank and I are probably a part of 10, 20, 30 different Facebook groups about real estate. And all the time people post, hey, I got a piece of land here, or I've got a property there, or I need this, or they'll post out saying, hey, I'm looking for this. Let me know if you've got any properties that make sense.
And 90% are junk.
90% are junk.
And there's a possibility for a good deal here or there, though.
Yep, especially in today's market. So, you've got on-market properties, which are going to be like MLS listings, brokers, LoopNet, which is kind of the commercial version of like your realtor.com, or off market, which is where we like to be. There's, for sale by owners, you can do skip tracing, direct to owners, or my personal favorite is referrals. So I would say 80% of our deals have come directly from referrals, which is where, when I was talking about the broker thing earlier, I don't think I've actually sent out or connected with a new broker to send properties in probably about a year or a year and a half, just because we have a couple of existing relationships that are good, that we'll get a couple of broker leads that make sense. And a lot of the stuff just comes from, stuff like this. One of you might be like, hey, I've got a property in Utah. I've got no clue, if it makes sense. Or I've got there's this property in Texas. And then it's like, oh, I know a guy who does something like that. And networking is super important. Secondly, is always be a closer, not a talker. And today's, there's a lot of people who are coming into the real estate space, especially when you're talking like with brokers. If you are or have done a property, lean on your experience that you've done or the experience of other partners. The last thing that, either brokers or people, if they're looking at properties, want to do is people who just kind of want to spin the wheels, underwrite it, and get stuck in the analysis paralysis. So if you're not super comfortable, or there are areas where you don't quite know in a deal, find an experienced partner who has the confidence and who can kind of help walk you. Maybe you take a small piece of a deal to start with to be able to have that experience before you can take one on your own. But if you have that type of partnership, when you're actually talking with people who have potential properties, you have the confidence to say, yes, I can give you an answer, or yes, I know what our criteria is. And if you treat their deal seriously, they'll treat you seriously, and you'll get really better deals. One small thing, like we had a broker here in Salt Lake. Frank, this is actually right after we closed our Idaho property. He wasn't taking our relationship very seriously, and was slow to respond and wasn't really sending a lot of properties. And then he saw on Facebook that we had closed 1 or 2 properties together, the 50 unit up in Idaho. And within that, I think I got 4 emails from him the following week, without even a phone call or a text, like 4 emails saying, hey, I know you're serious. And I know, and so if they know that you're a closer, or they know that you are serious, they'll treat you seriously. So Frank, anything to add to that?
Instead of the word talker, I usually use the phrase tire kicker. I mean, it's a little tough. That's one of the phrases we use out here. It's called a tire kicker. Basically someone that, just stands around, talks, kicks a few tires. Obviously it's pretty tough in this market to find a lot of deals. Right now I'm figuring I'm doing about 1 out of every 90 or 1 out of every 100. But so, it's a little bit of both, but if you find that right deal, you do have to move forward and jump on it quickly.
Definitely agree with that. That's where being able to, that's why I said, know your niche and market is the very first thing. Know what you want when you start. That way, when it comes up, you can identify it and you can be able to say no if it doesn't fit. Have the, be willing to say no. If you say yes to every single thing, like I've been guilty of that. Like, oh, it's an opportunity. That trophy shop example I gave you earlier. I'm like, it's an opportunity. And yeah, the numbers make sense. And yes, it's even in the market, but it's not the type of property that we do. And it ended up like, it's just better. We said no to that. And the very next day, another one came along that made a lot more sense, that we're currently actually under contract on now. So, okay. So here's 4 creative ways to find a deal. Okay. So number 1, talk with the city planners and try to look around the curve for where growth is coming. So there are a few little maps. I'm actually going to show you guys. I like to be kind of a doer here. So there are, I guess, 2 or 3 maps at a city that you can look at to be able to identify potential places for growth. So one is called I'm just trying to think of what city we want to do. Let's just do Salt Lake City zoning map. Okay, so you just type in your city. There's going to be anywhere online here, you're going to be able to log in, and then it's going to pull up these big, they call them GIS, like geographical interactive systems, for looking. Every city in the country has this, and if it's not in the city, it's going to be in the county. So for the smaller ones that are in between major metros, they're going to be smaller. Or sorry, they're going to be held with the county. So you can see all these different colors in here and different triangles and boxes and stuff. There's two different types of things that determine what you can build in an area. There is your zoning, which is your base. So like you have every zone in the city has these big maps called a zoning map. And that is what all of the properties are currently zoned for. So if I click on this, the zoning is CG, which is probably commercial, general commercial. Where I go over here, and this one is going to be, these are running into little, so this is Central Business District. The zoning is D1. So underneath, now if I went to Salt Lake's actual website, I go into it's called their ordinances. Ordinances are laws for a city. So every zone has an ordinance attached to it. An ordinance is pretty much what you are allowed to do in that zone, or what you are not allowed to do within that zone. So if you're looking at a piece of land, the first thing to do is to go to your city or county's website and to be able to check, okay, what is the current zoning for this piece? Okay, great. It's it's MR10, which is like, maybe it's multifamily 10, so 10 units an acre. It'll pretty much, the name a lot of times can tell you what can go there. So secondly is you look at what's called the future land use map, which land use map. So right here, most cities or counties, and this may be just a really small edit to it, but just in the spirit of time here. Yeah, so master plans or master maps.
Yeah, that's what we
So-
call it around here, is the master plan. It's like
Perfect.
looking at what the city should be like 10, 15 years from now. Stuff like that.
Exactly. So they're going to have, and just in the spirit of time, I probably picked a really big city, like Salt Lake probably has over 70 or 80 different types of maps between utilities and zoning, but they have one, it pretty much looks exactly like this, but they'll have areas of the city that are out in kind of, you can call it the boonies, that are unincorporated. They're not actually part of the city yet, but the city in 25 years intends to develop that part of the city. Or the future zoning, even though it's currently zoned like agricultural, which allows you really no development rights, it really is the future land use is the city says, hey, we want this to eventually be commercial because it's up against the highway. So you can rezone, you can switch your zoning from what's currently on this map. So some of these guys that are here in the middle, at some point, they were probably so this is MRF 35, which is residential multifamily, 35 units an acre, which is super dense. Originally, they were probably in this zone, and they, on the future land use map, decided they could go to the city, and they convinced them to rezone it to this, and so that there's a bunch of massive apartment buildings right here. So the green guys in the middle, let's just say that was this old zone here. These guys know, okay, based on what's around me, okay, it's open space, but they know that they can be able to, you can follow some of the zoning around you, even if it's not your current zone, you can be able to get there. So
Chris, to give a quick example for locally, we might have a city like Providence where there's a few streets that used to be like an R2 zone, which would allow mostly single families, but then they might change it to an R3, which might allow more duplexes, et cetera. And I'm not sure if that's just an idea to explain for people. local.
This is a great example. So this is Logan. This is this is up in northern Utah. So the future land use map, this says, okay, this is what we want these areas to be, and what specific zone that we want them to be in. So we want, if you go actually look at Logan's current zoning, there's a bunch of parcels up here along the highway that are still actually zoned agricultural or residential. But their future land use in 25 years, they're planning on that being commercial. Almost always the future land use is going to be more dense and a greater benefit to you as a developer or an owner, that you go and get it rezoned. And you can be able to then, once you have the zoning, now you go into the city laws and it will tell you exactly what you can do in that zone. So anyway, so talk with the city planners. I know a lot of the city planners here in Utah, at least by name, at least for the 7 or 8 different cities that we've done business in. And hey, what projects are coming up right now? Are there areas of the city that you're seeing a lot of growth in, or that areas of the city that the city really wants to focus in? Sometimes can lead you, and you're like, hey, there's one of these that needs to be rezoned, and the city's on the same page. Second's law of attraction. So provide value, connecting with others. It's pretty straightforward with being able to network, provide value. I connected with Emma for Frank and I's original deal. At the conference, I had told everybody, hey, I'm really good at underwriting and really good at numbers. If you have a deal and you need some help, let me know. And she gave me our Idaho deal because she didn't quite know how to underwrite all the numbers. I underwrote it. And then she's like, okay, well, since you underwrote it, can you help do this? And can you help raise a little bit of capital for it? And then I got introduced to Frank, and it was just kind of a snowball there. So always be interested in providing value. The 4 Ds are my favorite, which this is where you can kind of go direct to seller in certain ways, but death, divorce, debt, and desperation. 4 biggest Ds that are going to make people need to sell property and give them a very high motivation to do so. So, okay. Okay, Larry, I just read that question. I'm gonna get to that in just a second. So, last one was similar to the third, but again, networking with professionals. So you can be able to actually go to probate attorneys, reach out to title companies, see who's delinquent on their taxes, see who just filed for divorces and who's likely to sell their home or their land. We've actually done that before. We got a list from our title company of we found out, any of the recent public divorces that had been filed, and then asked the title company to reference any of the addresses with people who own land in a city. It's kind of a tricky part to actually get there, but we ended up finding a few good projects. One of them that turned into a small deal. So, okay. So, how do you know if it's a good deal or not? Okay. So one of the things I can also give you guys today, I just made this just nice and simple. This is a really easy way to underwrite a property or underwrite maybe a new land development. And the boxes, these are the only things that the only assumptions you really have to type in that can give you some good, at least some basic numbers. And then there's some more full versions that, again, I tend to be pretty straightforward. I'm happy to share. But start simple and then go from there. With a property, we're always going to reverse engineer our purchase price. So sometimes purchase price is going to come from just knowing the market and knowing like what you're paying per acre or how big of the land is versus what they're asking for. But you're always going to take your sales. So your total, whatever you're gonna, you find a piece of land, let's just say, hey, you know what, this guy wants, he wants $990,000 or $1 million just to make it easy. Okay, and it is on 24 acres right now, which means that they're roughly 30-acre lots, and the total number of units is This particular one I'm thinking of was, we have 43 residential units there. And in the end of the day, I know that, okay, these 3rd-acre lots, which, by the way, I went to the city zone, read the ordinance, and it said your minimum lot size, your average lot size needs to be 3rd acre. It's 3rd acre all around it. So that's kind of what we, how we got to the 43. I know that a 3rd-acre lot in this particular market, we pulled some comps, I asked some brokers, and I knew that they were going to sell for about $105,000 a piece. I know that I'm going to have to take out closing costs when I sell each of those lots. And then the improvement costs, I talked to some contractors, hey, based on some residential developments, 3rd-acre lots, you're a big excavator, someone who's done a lot of streets or sidewalks. How much per lot are you seeing right now that it's going to take to be able to develop? A lot of factors that go into that, but hey, what about a rough number? And, oh, okay, great. You're about $45,000 a lot. Perfect. So we came over, and said, okay, it's going to take us, about 12 months to be able to develop it, sell it. I'll come back to some of these a little bit later when we're doing some examples, but
Chris, can we zoom this in a little more just so it's easier to read the numbers? Yeah. Perfect. That's perfect.
bam.
Thanks.
It's big here on my my launch control center. So let me know if it's ever, yeah, thank you. But being able just to have, okay, this project might take about 12 months. We feel confident based on today's market, we could sell 43 lots in a year. And the closing cost, about 6%. You're going to pay a realtor, call it 2.5% on one side, 2.5% on another, 1% for closing costs. So we factor in about 6%, and we want to have a small contingency built in. And so based on, how much all of my total costs are, I know a bank is going to give me about 70%. And I can go into this in a little bit more detail as you guys have questions. And then don't worry about this little part down here just yet. But overall, I know that I've got 900.
Yeah, don't worry about this little part down here just yet.
Yeah. So long story short, this is an easy way that we can come and do some numbers and be able to see, okay, it's got about a 22% profit margin, and we want to be somewhere in the 20 to 30 range for a property if we're going to entertain it. A good rule of thumb is, and this is changed slightly in today's market. You want 1/3 of the cost to be your land, 1/3 of the cost is your horizontal development, and 1/3 of your cost is your margins. Right now, the land and the cost, land is a little under, right here in 24%, and your improvement costs are a little bit over, just because stuff is so high in today's market. So hopefully that's helpful. We can come back to that in a little bit. Okay, any questions so far that are coming back and forth on this? And maybe Larry, this is a good question. So you said, is negotiating with a price and piece of land similar to a house or building or not similar at all? So it depends on whether you're dealing with a broker, something that's on market, or whether you're dealing direct with the seller. The majority of the land developments that we've done, the easy answer is it depends. For the most part, I think it's a little bit different. A lot of times we deal with farmers, generational families, people who have owned land for 40 or 50 years. So the offers that we're presenting to them, we have a little strategy where we actually give them 3 offers. We say, here's the lowest amount that's going to be for 100% cash. Here's the highest possible amount, which is roll in the majority of your equity as a partner and be able to get more, or a hybrid of in between. We'll give you a little bit of cash, a portion of the cash now, and then we will, you can be able to essentially be the bank for a short period of time and make some interest on your money. With land development specifically, taxes is a huge issue for a lot of sellers because they've owned the land forever, so their basis is close to nothing, or what they bought the property for is like $1,000. They're selling it for 2 million. When they sell that for 2 million, they have to pay what's called capital gains tax. If they don't 1031, or if they don't have, a lot of people haven't done that before, don't know, or don't have another property to do it. So, and then having like contingencies with the offer. Usually we like to have our land development offers contingent upon at least preliminary approval from the city. Most cities, you go through a preliminary approval and then you go to a final approval. So like planning commission for preliminary, city council for preliminary, and you go back to those same two bodies for final. We like to get as far the way through. Sometimes like a land development, we actually found last Wednesday, we had to close on it yesterday. So we had 7 days to close and it hasn't even touched getting approved yet. It's not even in the right zone yet. So it'll take us about a year for it to get approved, but the opportunity made sense and we have a lot of experience in that specific market. So
you put money down
yep, we had to
with contingencies.
We had to put, so in 7 days, we actually had to assume another contract that was falling through. And yeah, we had to put $20,000 down that day, which not a penny of that was mine. And which is where, partners, $20,000 on the day. And then we had to come up, this one was maybe a little more aggressive. We had to come up with about $1.5 million in a week. So it was exciting. It's a busy week.
And that $1.5 million, now that's just sitting at their attorney's escrow or something? Because that's not going to the owner right now, because we got to wait for all the approvals, right?
So this one we actually had to buy. So they got a paycheck and they're thrilled. We actually, that one was quicker. We actually did a hard money loan on that. And we have a bank working on doing, we're refinancing or getting another loan from a bank. So we're paying, 10 or 12% interest for a month or two, which in the scheme of things in the big project, that makes sense, but we have a pre-existing relationship with the bank. So we knew that we could act that quickly. And I know I can get a land loan in 2, worst case, 3 months, because I know the value in the appraisals there. And we have the pre-existing relationship. Traditionally, most of our developments are like a 90-day close. We like to say that we have 45 days of due diligence with 100% refundable earnest money, and 45 days, sometimes like 60 days for city approvals and another 30 days for financing. It just depends whether it's on market or off. With earnest money, I don't like putting up upfront earnest money. I always like to kind of throw the card that, hey, you want, usually it's like 1% for earnest money. So the property is $2 million, they're going to want 20 grand. I'll say, I'll give you $5,000 now, and I'm going to give you $15,000 after due diligence. I can put $20,000 up for you right now, but it's 100% refundable. So it really doesn't mean anything. And I'd rather spend that extra $15,000 doing surveys and doing other things that are going to give me a higher likelihood to deliver on the contract. So it limits my out-of-pocket cash up front. And in that 30 days, I'll go and secure and have conversations with partners and investors so that they can help to be able to bring in some of that cash.
Now, Chris, back to Larry's question about negotiating and just similarities. Would you agree that land development is, I mean, you're more an expert than the average bear here, but wouldn't you agree that it is riskier than buying multifamilies and buy and hold investing?
In different ways. I personally think that existing properties we're actually going to go into some of the pros and cons here in a minute.
Hi.
Between the two of them. Land is extremely difficult to leverage and there's no cash flow. So it's the lowest leverageable asset at like 60 to 65% loan to value, sometimes even 50% depending on the market. Whereas existing properties, you can leverage all the way up as high as 80, commercial properties at least to 80, residential properties sometimes even higher than that. So it's definitely, it does have its inherent risks, which I think we're going to touch on here in just a minute. So great question, Frank. Any other questions that come to mind so far about being able to know if a property is a good deal? And we can be able to walk through a couple of examples here in a few minutes, but.
I think we're waiting to see more examples.
Sounds good. Okay, so how we're funding it, I'm going to try to be quick on a lot of this because I really want to just spend most of the time just kind of working through actual projects. That's how I work best here. But funding it is very simply going to be normally for a development, we'll get an upfront land loan. So we'll have to come, we'll do some quick math here on Spotlight. If a property is going to be, if the land is $1 million, I know I'm going to need about $350,000 to do the land loan, or 35% down. We'll do a short-term land loan with some equity or owner's equity, either from you or your partners, put in a skin in the game. And then we refinance that land loan into what's called an A&D loan. It's kind of like a construction loan for building a house. It's called an acquisition and development loan. It pays for the acquisition of the land to refinance your land loan, and then the horizontal development of all those things we talked about in the beginning, your streets, sidewalks, asphalt. And it gives what's called a bond for the city, which is essentially a guarantee or a security that you weren't leaving. And if you do, you're leaving your money on the table so the city can finish it.
And that's mostly for like the roads, utilities, curb cuts, stuff like that. We're not talking about the whole project here.
Correct. Yeah. So when you're doing, so let's just, in that example that we did a few minutes ago, the improvement costs right here are $1,935,000. Might be nice to have a cleaner number here. 1.8 million. The city is going to make you actually come up with 110% of that cost. You have to actually give the city a bond, which is pretty much like
A bond's like insurance.
Exactly. So we go to the bank and we get a line of credit from the bank for this amount to give to the city. So they know if market prices go up 10%, they can still pay for it. If we get halfway through finishing it, that they have 100% control over that account.
But just to give an example, not saying you know the exact answer, but like if the improvement costs of $45,000, and I know that's per lot, what kind of, any idea what a bond would cost for the $45,000? Just throw out a number.
So the bond, the bond is really just like there's different types of bonds. There's an surety bond, which is provided by like an insurance company. So you pay a premium every month. I've never done those because most cities don't allow them after 2008 because everyone got burned when all the insurance companies went bankrupt. But the second one is called an irrevocable cash bond, which is the worst, but it's also what 99% of cities are going to make you do. And it's essentially you're either going to open up a bank account and you're going to put that amount, $1,980,000 in a bank account, and you're going to give ownership of that bank account to the city. They have 100% control over that account. And as you do your improvements, you get inspections. So contractor gives me, just back to even numbers here, $1 million, which means that this is my cost, my warranty bond, the extra amount the city is going to make me put is going to be 10%. So my total bond is going to be $1,100,000. And my contractor, let's say that, they do half of the work and I get an invoice for $500,000 of the $1 million worth of work. I send that to the city and the city sends me a letter of credit back saying, okay, you're good to release $500,000. I forward that to the bank cuts the check to my contractor.
I am glad that our local cities and towns let me just buy an insurance bond.
That's wonderful.
I think it was like, so for example, we put in some curbs, and the curbing, I don't remember, it was $25,000 maybe. And basically I spent like a $600 bond to ensure in case I did not fulfill.
Yep. So I've never seen or had any of those over here, but if I find any, I will be smiling ear to ear.
There you go, it's cheaper.
So the cost that you're looking for is, it's really like, you just have to show proof that you have this money up front. You can't really pay for it along the way, so to speak. And then the cost of borrowing or lending that additional 10% is essentially the cost. So if I'm getting a bank loan for, call it 5%, I know I'm going to need the $1 million anyways, but it's going to be an extra $5,000 of, and let's say I have to hold it, or, you know, I have it for a year. So I'm going to be $416 every single month to be able to hold that bond for the city. Does that answer that question a little bit? Well, bonds are a little bit confusing. Most of the time, whoever you're financing through is going to help you take care of your bond. But yeah. And then when do you make money? The quick answer is you make your money last after everyone else gets paid. But you've got the biggest upside, and you've also got, you know, to get paid last. We had a project in Midway. It was my first development that I'll actually go into right here with myths. So couple of myths about land development. You need to have experience and money. My first deal, I was 20 years old. It was my first project, 20 years old. We raised $3.5 million. Looking back, I probably had no clue what I was doing. I went to 36 banks before one of them said yes. I'm not exaggerating. And we got it closed. You know, the fourth one there, there's little to no hidden costs. I thought I was going to make 1.3 million. I made like 174, which was still great, but for the amount of hours and time we put into it, the per hour rate was probably in the single digits. And like, yeah, so it's important to have experienced partners who can be able to foresee some of the hidden costs or some of the issues that you want to do, that I can show with some of the examples. Development's fast and easy. It's definitely not. It takes a lot of time. Cities usually don't meet any more frequently than every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So even if you have 4 meetings, it's going to take you like a month in between each of those, assuming your engineers are getting back to you fast enough with like feedback. It does take a lot of time. And so keep in mind, during that time, you don't really have a lot of leverage and you don't really have cash flow. So it's, you know, some of the pros and cons about developments. Anybody can do it. I do think that is 100% true. Like anybody can do it, but you have to be able to have the right team in place, and you should only develop in a large market. Right now, without going too specific, the statistical optimism for like the U.S. treasuries and something I guess called cap rates, it's how commercial property is valued, is actually more optimistic. It's valuing second tier markets for the first time in history over first tier markets. So the major metropolitans like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami are actually slightly less optimistic than they are about you know, bustling things like Phoenix, maybe an area like Salt Lake. I don't know if we'd quite land on any of the big maps there, but
Chris,
yeah.
I'm confused by this slide real quick. So
this is a typo. This third one at least.
So myths busted. You need lots of experience and money. Do you agree with that or not?
I don't agree, because
Okay.
you can be able to get, so you need lots of experience and money. That's not true, because you can be able to have.
You can find partners that have it.
Correct.
Okay.
Development's fast and easy.
That's not true.
Myth busted. Always plan for double. It's double the cost and double the time if you're lucky. Our original bid for our first Midway project was $835,000. The out the door cost was 1.73 million. So a little over double. And instead of taking me 9 months, like I optimistically thought, it took just under 2 years. So anyways, so I can forward these slides over to you guys, but just pros and cons, new apartments versus existing, like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about before, just depending on what you're looking for or your partners are looking for. Yeah, I'm gonna forward these on because I want to be able to have time to answer any of the questions right at the end. But a couple of quick golden nuggets: adjust your mindset, think bigger. If you've never done it before, like don't let age, experience, money, self-doubt, any of that stuff, stuff get in your way. I was 20 years old with $3,500 to my name and a full-time student. You guys, if I can do it, I know you guys can do it too. Check the soils and know your area. That was one of the big issues we found in one of our first projects, was having experienced partners who could be able to see little things to avoid what are called change orders. So you don't need to qualify for the loan. You can get partners. Don't be afraid to be creative. There's a lot of really creative financing things that we did when I didn't have a lot of money and I didn't have a lot of ways to incentivize partners to want to partner with me. You can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Cities can be your best friends rather than legally we're allowed to do this. We can sue you. Cities might not be able to stop you always, but they can slow you down. So there's a lot of stuff here. So we can go questions and then go through any of these examples, and I can forward these on. And yeah. So thank you for letting me go on my little spout there. Right now, we primarily focus, like we've got a lot of new land developments that we are doing, but we also have a lot of existing properties like the ones Frank do, or even mixed use, whether it's an existing property and we're building a new building next door. They coincide really, really easily. It just depends on what your goals and strengths are. Okay. So Frank, what do you think is the easiest way? We can either go through, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to either do a couple of example properties. We can try and find one really quick. If somebody has one that they want to be able to ask, to be able to run a couple of quick numbers on, or I can just run through a few.
Well, if you want to challenge yourself and find one in New England, not in Utah.
Okay.
I'll let you do that for a second. Besides that, if anybody has a question, now would be the time to ask Chris, who's definitely more of an expert in this field than I am. I have done a little bit of new construction, and I did a subdivision, but that was all small time stuff compared to the stuff he's talking about.
So I'll do this in the background. If you guys want to be able to ask questions directly.
Christopher, any question there? I see you. Yeah, go ahead.
I got a question.
Please.
Do you ever find municipalities that are hard to deal with, or maybe like are asking for like freebies or something like that from the project, like public improvements and those types of things?
All the time. Absolutely. Giving you a brief example, one of our development projects, as a developer, the code it's really important to know the difference between administrative and legislative decisions. Administrative means that it's in the code, it's in your ordinance, and you are allowed to do it. And if the city says no, you can actually sue them. They can't, like, administrative means it's like, if you fit in the box, you 100% can do it because it is your right as a property owner. Legislative decisions mean that you have to first fit in the box, and we have to like you, and it has to be in the best interest of the city. For us to even consider a yes, because we like you, you have to fit in the box. And a lot of times, at least here in Utah, they're called overlays. So our we had to do a city park for one of our projects. The improvement cost was going to be about $75,000. It's like a 2.5 acre city park. That was the developer minimum. The city tried to get us to, they were building a city park. They tried to make us pay 300 grand for it. And we actually wrote them a letter from our attorney threatening to sue. They immediately dropped it, and the city used their impact fees to pay the difference. So know what you're allowed to do and not. Your civil engineers are going to be the ones who will tell you. Your civil engineers are your experts in the code, and always push back against cities. Be their friend, but at the same point, like, just because they say you need to do something does not mean that you need to do that. So that's a really great question, though.
I can't even say it because we're being recorded. Maybe after. Rhode Island's a whole different world with that kind of stuff.
Yep, I would agree with that. So here's the old, here's the city of Providence. I bet you we can find a development near Frank's house. Do you have any vacant land in your backyard? Just kidding. So who's got some other questions based on, I see a hand up there.
Yeah, hi. I have a question. So if I can buy a land and then hire someone to build a house on it, why don't the people who know how to build the house buy the land themselves, to get all the value? I just don't know whether there's the opportunity for people who don't know how to build a house here.
Mm-hmm. I would say there's a great analogy is every single one of us are running down the beach together with 5-gallon buckets, getting water out of the ocean. And we're all pushing each other over saying, don't take my water. Like,
okay.
There is only so much bandwidth a builder and only so much bandwidth people have to be able to do. So like with you, if you find a piece of land and it is off market and you have that land, like that's a huge value to a builder, because the builder they're not in the business of finding property, they're in the business of building homes. So the less that they have to do over here, if they have people literally knocking on their door with a great deal and they can give you a fair, reasonable fee for doing it, like, and they can just focus on what they're good at, they do that in a heartbeat. We had a project, it didn't make sense for us to do the vertical building for it. We had a piece of land, got it approved for 132 townhomes, and we partnered with the builder. We're not doing any of the construction. And we have a partnership with the builder that they're going to pay us on just a small percentage per lot. We're able to make a really good profit on it. And the builder is super happy because they have a great piece of land. And that was actually a cold call to the seller originally. So from one of those divorce lists.
Thank you.
Yep. Great question.
Chris, if there's no more questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut off the video now, the recording. And then if people want to say things that shouldn't be recorded, we can move on from there. But I have a lot of people smiling and laughing about it, I can tell. So our next meeting is in person, third Thursday of the month, November 18th. We have Nate Green going to be speaking about what you're really insured for when you buy a property and what you're not. He's probably going to go into some of the specifics. So it should be a good meeting, and networking always. And even after Chris is done here, you guys can hang out here a little bit as well. So I'm going to stop this meeting.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.